because success is not an accident. It's just not. It's thought through, it's tracked, it's setting small milestones to lead to the bigger goals. And so I thought I would share with you what the top 10 New Year's resolutions typically are for people, since we're going to be talking about this. And I'm sure there's going to be one or two that you pick, or maybe you already have picked. And then I'm going to share with you just some helpful tips to help you to be successful in whatever you're setting out to do in 2024. Welcome to the Mompreneur Life Remix podcast, where you will learn how to remix your mompreneur life so that you can win at work without losing yourself in the process. Hi, my name is Martine Williams, and I am your host and CEO, your Chief Encouragement Officer. And this podcast is your one-stop shop to creating a burnout-proof life and business and elevating your clarity, confidence, and courage. Friends, it's time to say goodbye to being the yes girl and hello to creating healthy boundaries, healthy mindsets, and healthy habits. Your next breakthrough starts here. This is the Mompreneur Life Remix podcast. Let's do this. Well, happy New Year's, friends. I cannot believe that it's 2024 and this is the first episode of this new year. Happy New Year. I hope that you've had some wonderful time with your family. Spent some time maybe reflecting over this last year, things that you want to take into this new year, things that you just need to leave behind, and some things that you need to let go so that you can receive what's next for you in this year. And I want to start off with reminding you that a letting go is a letting in. It's a new year, and we need to let go of the goals maybe that we didn't hit. No one is perfect, right? And if we stay in the pity party, we can't let in the goodness that is to come this year. Reflect on what did work, what wins we did have. There's always things that are working. We have to learn to train our brains to see them. Not just right now, not just today as you're listening to this episode, but every day. And a bonus tip from one of my favorite books from 2023, The Gap and the Gain: end each day celebrating 3 wins, 3 moments of goodness, grace, and progress, and then also write out 3 anticipated wins for the next day. So I'm really excited to dive in on this episode 1, really dedicated to probably things you're already thinking about. For some of you, maybe you're already not ahead of the game, but you've been talking about this since December 1st. Like, you've already done your word of the year, you've done your resolutions, you've done your goals. But I also know there are some of you mompreneurs who are like, you know what, I was literally just surviving December and I'm just now getting started. So regardless of where you're at today in this process, this episode is going to be for you. And if you followed me for any amount of time, you know I'm not a big fan of New Year's resolutions because 80% of them will be broken by February 1st. And it's because it's our priorities, not our intentions, not our resolutions, that chart our course, or should be charting the course for us. Because just like resolutions, we can intend to do a lot of things. We can intend to connect with our spouse more. We can intend to grow the business. We can intend to be healthier this year, but it's what we make priority. It's what I make priority that's going to make the difference in the result that you get. And whether, again, you're someone who does a New Year's resolution, and maybe you're someone who does the one word for the year, and I've kind of gone back and forth. I tend to go more with the one word of the year because, again, I'm not a huge fan of resolutions. So my word for this year is abide, which is living in expectation versus experience. I don't know about you, but like some of my experiences of the last 2 years, like they've just not been what I wanted them to be, right? And some of those experiences sometimes cloud like my expectation. And one of the devotionals I did last year was 100 Days of Believing Bigger. Fabulous devotional by Marshawn Evans, if you've never done that one before. But I'm onto her second devotional, and it's all about abiding. And I loved her definition, which is just living in full expectation versus experience. And so instead of looking back at what my past experiences have been, good, bad, or indifferent, like I want to look into 2024 with that word abide, with living in full expectation of what's to come, full expectation of growth, full expectation of all of the reflection time, the preparing time. Those of you that have been in a wilderness season, kind of as I have, like I am in full expectation of 2024 being a big year for me. And I'm really, really excited about it. So my word for the year is abide. And I really think about, how do I want to show up this year and how do I want to be remembered? That's just kind of a theme I have for myself. So whether I'm walking into a networking event, whether I'm walking into a family event, whether I'm walking into the gym, just whatever opportunity I find myself in, how do I want to show up and how do I want to be remembered? So you may define that through resolutions, maybe through goals, maybe it's the one word, but whichever way you go, it all boils down to priority. What are you making a priority and why? And then how are you prioritizing that? Because success is not an accident. It's just not. It's thought through, it's tracked, it's setting small milestones to lead to the bigger goals. And so I thought I would share with you what the top 10 New Year's resolutions typically are for people, since we're going to be talking about this. And I'm sure there's going to be one or two that you pick, or maybe you already have picked. And then I'm going to share with you just some helpful tips to help you to be successful in whatever you're setting out to do in 2024. And maybe not even knowing that yet, like I said, and that's okay. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to decide on January 1st, or again, if you're an overachiever, maybe December 1st was when you were making all these decisions. But I just want to help you to give yourself some grace through this process, because you don't want the ladder leaning up against the wrong wall, the ladder leaning up against the wrong opportunity. And if you're rushing through this process, or if you kind of have the all or nothing mentality, well, I didn't do it by December 1st or by January 1st, so I'm just going to throw in the towel and just wing it all year. Like, give yourself some time to really think through again. And how did you feel in 2023? What do you want to change about that? What do you want to take with you into this year? What worked well? What didn't? And what can you improve upon? This is something that my coach has just really been pressing hard on us, is evaluating everything. What's worked well, and teaching your brain to really start out with seeing the wins first, like what's worked well in the situation. And then being honest about what didn't, and then what can you improve upon? If you just took that as a priority into 2024, you will see different results, because there's always something that's working. There's always something that probably didn't, and then something that we can improve upon. But usually we have that all or nothing mentality where everything is working or nothing really is. I know someone is like, yep, that's me. So seek to evaluate this year. To the top 10 resolutions, and this is from GoSkills.com. Number one, and you probably could guess this one, is exercise more. I think that's always the number one, is people want to exercise more. Number two, lose weight. Number three, get organized. Number four, learn a new skill or a hobby. Number five, live life to the fullest. Like, what does that even mean? Like, that's not even a specific resolution. Number six was to save money or spend less money. Again, need to be more specific. Number seven, quit smoking. Number eight, spend more time with family and friends. Number 9 was travel more. Number 10 was read more. So maybe you're like, yep, check, and some of these, and maybe you have a bunch of them listed off. And so let me just share with you some great things that I think will help you with this process. Number one, I already said it, really be specific. What is it that you want 2024 to look like? How do you want to feel in 2024? How do you want to show up? What do you need to think or believe to feel and act that way? So many times, and I've done this so many times, we try to address the behavior first, especially if you are an ambitious, driven person. Like, just let me work harder. And we talked about this in a previous episode. Like, you can just be on that revolving door and you can just be pushing it harder and harder. You're still going in circles. So we try to address the behavior first and then the action without evaluating our thoughts. Your thoughts matter. What you say to yourself matters. What you believe about yourself matters. Our mindsets are where the behaviors are born. And so many times, again, we just try to start with the action. And I really want to challenge you, number one, to be very specific on what do you need to think about yourself and think about your goals that you're going to set for 2024. To actually feel like it's possible, actually feel excited about it, actually feel, energetic, so that you can act that way. That's another thing. I just really want you to go into 2024. I talk about mindset a lot on here, but maybe you're like, what does that even mean? This is what I'm talking about. Capturing your thoughts, catching them, checking them, and changing them if you need to. It all is going to start with what you are telling yourself and what you believe about what's possible for you for 2024. But also be as specific as possible as you can because you can't just say, I want to exercise more, right? It's just not specific enough for your brain to move into action to do the things it needs to do to help you achieve that goal. So we can't just say, I want to exercise more. I want to lose weight. Be very specific on what you want. And maybe it's not one of those 10. And think again, we can get wrapped up in what other people are doing, what's trending right now, what we think is politically correct in setting our priorities or setting our New Year's resolutions, whatever you want to call them. But think about what you want. What does your family want? Where do you want to go in 2024? And be as specific as possible. Okay, number 2, mentally prepare for the challenge of the change. Mentally prepare for the challenge of the change. So you probably wanting to change an area, whether it's change a job, change a mindset, change a belief, change an activity, creating more exercise in your life. It's super painful in the beginning, right? When you're starting to exercise, it hurts. And it's doing the things you've never done before or you haven't in a really long time, then it's going to require some growing pains. And so you have to have the kind of mentality to prepare for that challenge of change, knowing that it's going to be difficult in the beginning because it is change. So just like I said, your thoughts matter. Your thoughts about change matter. But it'll get easier each step of the way. It'll get easier, more familiar, more systematic, more like just who you are and what you do. You think about, I always use this example, like brushing your teeth. When you have kids, you have to remind them. But as an adult, it's just what you do because you've done it for so long. It's the habit that you've been doing. But if you're trying to create a new healthy habit, then you need to make sure that it's, number one, your priority, and then also mentally prepare for the challenges that are going to arise, right? Like there's so many women that I coach that are like, I should just be a grown woman and be able to just pick myself up by my bootstraps, or I should just be able to do this. I'm a grown woman. But when you're creating change, change is hard. Most of us resist change. So again, what are the thoughts you need to think about change so you don't resist it? Some of the ways I mentally prepare is by surrounding myself with positive influences. So that could be people I'm following on social media. Do they have similar goals as me? Are they valuing the same things as me? The people I talk to on the phone that I text, who are those people that can be positive influences to help feed a positive mindset? So that when I have a setback, or when you have a setback, or you have that day you're just not feeling right and you're not wanting to participate in that change that day, you have someone you could call upon. We need that person in our life. I also mentally prepare by listening to podcasts of people who are doing the thing, right? They're doing what they said they were going to do. They're following through. They're not perfect, but they have that encouraging, motivating sense about them that it's somebody I can tune into and someone that I know will help give me that little bit of push, maybe in that inspiration that I need to just keep going. And then reading is another way that I mentally prepare. I already shared one of my top books from 2023, The Gap in the Gain. Another one is How to Grow Your Small Business. That one's by Donald Miller. I love him for anything business. This Naked Mind is a personal development book. It's all about alcohol. So if your priority or your resolution for the year is to decrease your alcohol, or maybe you're going to be doing dry January, I am telling you, This Naked Mind is the best book I have ever read on your relationship with alcohol. It's amazing. And I'm going to share more with you about my own journey in the podcast to come. And then I just finished The Traveler's Gift because my book club is doing that book. This is probably at least the 5th or 6th time I've read this book. And what was really cool is I realized that the 7 decisions for personal success, which is what the book is about, so many of them are literally just ingrained in how I operate. Like I'm really excited. I was really proud of myself when I was rereading this book, and like, yeah, I think that way. Yeah, this is what I say. Yeah, like so much of what I say and how I coach and how I support people really did come from reading that book and really adopting those 7 decisions. So, we can do a lot of reading. We can go to seminars, we can go to workshops, things like that. But if you don't actually adopt those things and actually make them a part of who you are and how you operate, it's just wasted time. So it was really cool for me to reread that and see that. So those are some of my top books. I'm constantly pouring in positivity into my mindset. Praying is also a way that I mentally prepare. Journaling, one of my favorite journals that I found, I told you about a couple of years ago, is from Cultivate What Matters. It's a write the word journal. I love it. When I first started journaling, I was always intimidated by a blank page. and like, how do I get started? Even when I was in high school and college writing papers, like that first 2 sentences were always the hardest for me. And then once I got going, I could just write and write and write and write. So I highly recommend Cultivate What Matters. I'll leave a link for a discount for you in the show notes. But really just journaling, journaling and praying helped me to mentally prepare, get out all of the feelings and thoughts and emotions. I did an amazing, I think I already talked about it, devotional 100 Days of Believing Bigger by Marshawn Evans. That one I would highly recommend for this year. If you're struggling with believing, that was my word for last year, was believe. I really just needed to spend some time believing bigger. So those are all ways that I mentally prepare for some of that change that I'm experiencing right now and that I know I'm going to experience in 2024. So I just wanted to share those with you. The third thing is to track and evaluate your progress. If you're not able to measure your progress, then how do you know you're getting closer to where you want to be? You're just kind of floundering around, not really knowing, is this working or not working, kind of going back to evaluating. How do you know if you need to do something a little different if you're not tracking it? Because if you're not getting closer to your goal, you're getting further away, friend. And it's much easier to realize that quicker in the beginning, like, this is not working. I just need to stop this immediately. Or I need to adjust that exercise, or I need to adjust that water intake, or I need to adjust this diet this way, or systems in your business throughout the day. The sooner you catch that it's not working, because you're tracking it, the faster you're going to get to your goal. So track your progress. The number one motivating factor for people, I read this a couple of years ago, is progress, like over money and over recognition. Seeing your progress increases your motivation, which increases the action to keep doing that action, which is going to increase your results. So how can you track your progress on your priority that you've set for 2024, your resolution, if you want to call it that, your word of the year? How are you tracking progress so that you can keep that motivation going? You can keep doing more of the right things and less of the wrong things to get the results that you want. There are all kinds of habit trackers out there. You could literally just use a piece of paper, write out your habits, your priorities, your goals, and track the progress on them. Are you getting closer? Remember, if you're not getting closer, you're getting further away. Number 4, prioritize what matters most. What is the most important goal for you in 2024? And then within that goal, what is the most important actions you need to do or things you need to remove from your plate to achieve it? So you have to get very specific. We talked about that, and prioritize, because you won't find time to do these things. You're going to have to make time and prioritize these, especially, again, if these are new things. It's not enough to just muscle your way through it. Willpower runs out. So some of these things that were a priority maybe in 2023 are going to have to move down the list or go off the list so that you can achieve what you want to achieve in 2024. You cannot keep adding to your plate, friends. You cannot, and operate optimally with the kind of energy that you need to reach these goals that you have 2024. You're going to have to take some things off of the plate and figure out what's most important right now to achieve what I have written out for 2024. And I think that's what happens, where the overwhelm, the burnout comes from, is we just keep, I want to do that, and I want to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. But then we don't take anything else off our plates. We just keep adding to our plates, even good things like volunteering at school, volunteering at church. Like, some of those things may have to come off of your plate, because if your plate is overflowing because you've added so many things to it, even the good things, it's still a heavy plate. And eventually you're going to put it down, and you're just going to quit on everything. So prioritize what matters most. And this may take some conversations. It may be you having a coach, wink, wink, maybe having a mentor. Maybe you want to talk to your spouse about it, your best friend about it, but really kind of figuring out what is most important right now, and then what's most important within that goal that I need to be doing, that you need to be doing, or not doing. One of the ways that I do this with my clients is a life audit. We go through the 10 key areas of life and give a rating. And then based on, seeing where they are and where they want to go, it becomes really clear on what are the appropriate actions and what needs to be priority. And this is the kind of work that most people don't do. Don't let that be you. Don't go into another year with the same stale, boring goals or politically correct priorities based on what you see everyone else doing. There's no energy behind that. There's no commitment behind that. And there's no fulfillment behind that. Number 5, write it down and put it where you can see it. What does it look like? This is where, a vision board may come into play. I'm very much a visual learner, motivated by seeing things on paper. Some of my screensavers on my phone I have used, on my computer, they all revolve around what my goals are, what's most important to me, because it reminds me. And when you're trying to create change, you're trying to create new healthy habits, you have to anchor it to something that you're already doing. So it helps to remind you to do that. For example, in the morning, again, you don't have to think about brushing your teeth. You just do it, right? So maybe you put your journal, if that's one of your goals for this year, is the journal, next to the sink so that it's there and it reminds you to journal for that day, because we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, again, to remember these things and just be able to muscle it up and do it. We have to create systems and create ways to be successful in creating new healthy habits. One of those is writing it down, putting it where you can see it every single day, and then sharing it with someone for accountability. Revisiting your goals every day, I think, is a super inspiring thing to do. If you are tracking it, which again, I highly suggest you do, then you'll see your progress as well as you're being reminded. But let's talk about accountability. Y'all know I'm huge on accountability. In the areas of my life where I have found the most success, it's because I have the most accountability in that area. And I've seen a lot of people, and I love this already, like posting on social media, like this is my goal for my fitness. And they're posting every single day. Some are doing maybe 75 hard. Some are doing just other fitness and health habits out there. But some people are really focusing on getting more sleep, getting more quality sleep. But publicly, putting it out there is a huge piece of accountability. Like just sharing it publicly with, this is what I'm working on. You will find some of your biggest cheerleaders and naysayers, but your biggest cheerleaders that will support you, that will check in with you. But if you're a bit more personal and you don't really want to put it out there to everybody, who is that person you can entrust to hold you accountable? Now, this doesn't mean this person is going to be chasing you down every day to see that you're on track with your priorities that you set for 2024. But this is the person that will be checking in, that you will be checking in with, to share with her. Like, hey, this is my progress. This is what I've done this day. It's probably going to be the same person that's going to help you mentally when the challenges arise, because let's face it, if you're trying something new, you're going to have some challenges and you're going to have to face some discomfort. So who is that person for you that you can share it with for encouragement, but also for that tough love and that accountability? Like, who's the person that is willing to risk the relationship with you to tell you the hard truth to help you reach your goal? Who can you let in to play that role? And maybe, just maybe, this is the year you invest in a coach. I personally had a coach for 15 plus years, and I do that intentionally. I intentionally invest. I intentionally save in my budget. I intentionally say no to some things, because there is nothing more valuable to me with regards to achieving my goals and achieving progress than investing in a coach. They see your blind spots. They can help be that person who's not emotionally charged by your circumstances or your situations. And really is, I could talk about coaching all day. It's a whole nother episode, but maybe this is the year. And you've heard me say this before, but if you could have done some of these things on your own, you would have already done them. So get brutally honest with yourself. What are you saying yes to? What are you spending or investing in that is not helping you get to where you want to go? And maybe take some of that energy and that investment of your resources and put it into hiring a coach. Number 6 is to review your priorities regularly. So you need to be reviewing them. Number 1, to be reminded why you're doing the uncomfortable things, why you're pushing through the pain of discomfort, why you're getting up every morning to go to the gym when it's uncomfortable, especially on these cold days. Am I doing these things? The things you've never done before, like your muscles are sore, you're tired from going to exercise. Like, reviewing why that's a priority for you regularly is going to keep your head in the game. And it's going to help you determine, is this still what's important for me? And I think this is where we kind of get things, we think it's written in stone. And listen, y'all know life happens and priorities need to shift. So it's not just, my faith, my family, my business, like all those politically correct things. But life can happen in an instant, and we've all seen that. And where your priorities have to shift for maybe a financial reason. Maybe someone in your family becomes ill and your priorities shift from certain friendships to taking care of your family at that time. It doesn't mean your friends aren't still important. Doesn't mean what you set out at the beginning of this year is not still important. It just means for this season right now, this has to be my new key priority. And I learned this years ago from Shalane Johnson in one of her courses that I took. It was called Smart Success. And she talks about how, you have your priorities, but then you have a key priority that you're going to work on for like 90 days and see how you progress on that, how you make progress on that. And that's one of the things I do with my clients with our life audit. But even with that, your priority key can shift. It can shift based on the season that you're in. So reviewing your priorities regularly to make sure they're not just something that you're going to do out of habit or because you've always done that or that you see someone else doing, but that they are the ones that are the most important to you, to who you want to be, how you want to show up, and how you want to be remembered in 2024. Number 7, don't quit. Don't quit when it gets hard. Quit when you're finished. When it gets hard, you can rest, but don't give up on it. When it gets hard, reach out to a friend. When it gets difficult, go listen to a podcast. When it gets hard, give yourself grace for sure, because this is not about perfection. This is about progress, and you want to make progress in 2024. There's going to be those days where you just want to throw in the towel and you'll say, this is not working. And that's a thought. We talked about our thoughts earlier. That's a thought error. This is not working. There is something that is working. You just have to train your brain to see it. But this is not working. If you're saying that to yourself, this is not working, I'm pretty sure it's probably bringing about a negative emotion. And then you're probably not going to move forward. Maybe your thought is, it worked for her. It's just not working for me. That's another thought that you have that is going to produce a certain action, a certain emotion, and a certain result. And that's because slow progress is still progress, friends. But when it goes slow, it feels like it's never going to happen. And for some of the goals that you have, you just have to settle in. It is not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in the first quarter. It may not even come to fruition until the very end of the year. But is it important? Is it worth it? Challenge your thoughts and your beliefs on that. Is it worth it? Is it worth the effort that you're going to be putting forth in that? If it's not, maybe it's not the right goal for you. So how can you set up some systems or daily check-ins with your progress? That's why I said at number 3, checking your progress is so important, because when you can see the progress, even if it's like teeny tiny, it motivates you to keep going. And so when times get tough with your New Year's resolutions, your priorities, or the change, because it's going to happen, that's part of your, that's part of mentally preparing yourself. As I said, number 2, for the challenge, it's going to happen. There are going to be challenges mentally, maybe time-wise. You're going to have those days. But what are some guardrails you can put up around yourself? What are some ways that you can set yourself up for success so that you don't quit on it, so that you don't just stop? You want to complete and finish what you started. I know you do, because I know you, because I'm sure we have so much alike. And I want you to finish what you started, because there's a lot of negative emotions that go around, like when you quit, right? And it doesn't mean that I don't have bumps along the road. I've had many bumps, lots of potholes. It doesn't mean that there aren't those bad days. It doesn't mean that I didn't fail along the way. But I do love what Marie Forleo has said in her book. I think I've probably shared this with you before, that fail is just a failed attempt in learning. It's just a failed attempt in learning. And how many people do you know have failed their way to success? Every single one of them. Some may admit them, some may not, but we just see the highlight reel. We see where they are right now, and we compare their day 100 to our day 1, and that's unfair, unrealistic expectations of yourself. So failure is an event. It's not a characteristic. It's not a characteristic of who you are. So if you're doing the other 6 things and you kind of get to a place, even if you're doing those other six things, and you still feel like this is just useless, I'm just going to quit. I'm failing. Just remember, it's a failed attempt in learning. You're one new decision away from achieving that next level of success. One new decision in how you're going to exercise. Maybe your New Year's resolution is to exercise 5 days a week, and you try a certain exercise and you hate it. Try something else. There's so many things that you can do to move your body, and movement is medicine. Don't throw in the towel on exercise. Just try something else. Maybe you're like, I'm going to try, part of your nutrition goals is to try out keto or whatever the latest and greatest diet is going to be produced in January. And you're all going home maybe in the beginning, and you find out it's just not working for you. Either it doesn't feel good, it's not something you're able to keep up with, then change it. So instead of quitting, just make a slight shift in your mindset, a slight shift in the actions that you're going to take. Because if you become super clear on day one or on that first step on being specific on what you really want, and you really dug deep on why it's important to you. So not just what you want, but why that's important to you, that you exercise 5 days a week in 2024. Like, what is it? What are those benefits? That's a whole nother podcast. We're not going there this time, but why is it important for you to make that career shift in 2024? Why is it important to you that you no longer allow toxic relationships in your life? That maybe one toxic relationship that you said last year you were going to get rid of. Why is that important for you this year to focus on, to make it a priority in creating that change that you want? Because when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, you'll make a change. When the pain of not exercising is greater than the pain of walking into the gym for the first time in 2 years, then you make the change. And sometimes we have to get to that pain point. I said to a friend the other day who was trying to get back into exercising after some time off, I said, you don't have enough pain right now. Like, you're just not in enough pain, because she was being very inconsistent. And she was saying one thing and then doing another. And I was just being a friend and gave her some tough love because, she asked me to give her accountability. And I said, you don't have enough pain right now. The pain of staying the same is not enough for you right now to make a change. And so we all have different pain levels, right? We all have different levels of just putting up with ourselves and our excuses. And that's okay. You just have to be honest with yourself. If that's the case, then maybe, that exercise doesn't need to be the priority for you this year. Or maybe you need more accountability. Or maybe you just need to give up your lame excuses and just do it, as Nike says. And just take that next step, because we all have a next step. You all have a next step this year in 2024, and it's your responsibility, and it's my responsibility to take that next step. No one's going to be there to do it for you, and it might be a hard decision, and it may be an uncomfortable decision. It's not always going to be easy, but I know when it's time to make that change. Knowing no one is coming for you, friend. No one's coming for me, and no one can put in our own reps. The buck stops with you. That's one of the 7 decisions for personal success from the Traveler's Gift that really stuck with me the very first time I read it. Like, it's my decision, right? It's my responsibility to create the life and the business that I'm looking for. And lastly, I want to say that none of this is possible if you are in proving energy versus confident energy. So how do we get to a confident energy? Number one, you have to know who you are, know your strengths, and seek to operate in them. And I know many of you are probably personal development junkies like me, and maybe you've taken all of the personality and performance assessments, Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, Strength Finders. I had done all of those as well, but maybe you've not been coached on how to actually use those things. It's kind of like going to an event and you have all these notes from your event, your conference, and then you do nothing with it. Like, you have all this knowledge, but you have not been taught how to actually put into action that knowledge. It's the same thing with your strengths. I'm finding with more clients, like, they have an idea of what their strengths are, but they have an even greater focus on their weaknesses. So by knowing your strengths, knowing who you are, and then seeking to operate in them helps you to show up confident versus proving. When you're improving energy, proving, you are trying to prove to yourself that you deserve this, or prove to yourself that you are this mom, you are this wife. Instead of just standing confidently in who you were created to be, there's a big difference. When you're improving energy, you're going to burn out before, the first quarter. So how can you be confident? And I said, number one is to know who you are, know your strengths, and to seek and operate in them. You know, the work I do with the Pro Scan, if you're new to the podcast, it's the work that I do with my one-on-one clients. There's an opportunity for you to do just like a beginner session with the Pro Scan. I highly recommend every single one of you, and not because I'm the one doing it, but I highly recommend that you at least do the Pro Scan starter the beginning of the year, so that you can build your goals in your business and your life around how you naturally operate, so that you're going to optimize your performance and optimize your results. We have to stop this compare and despair. We have to stop looking at what other people are doing. This is why Many of you may be following certain people on social media, and I've definitely been, I've done this myself where I see their system, what's working for them should work for me. Well, if we have different strengths of our personality, it's not going to work exactly for me the way it works for them. It's not a one size fits all. It's finding out what is going to work for you. And the easiest way for you to do that is to actually know how you operate naturally. What are your natural strengths and natural gifts that you want to bring to your business, that you want to bring to being a mom, that you want to bring to being the wife, the entrepreneur. So I would love to do that work with you. I probably will be holding some workshops at some point throughout the first of the year, but that one-on-one time with me is life-changing. It's been life-changing for my clients, and it's just the best way for you to start the new year. So I hope that this was helpful for you as you're thinking through your New Year's resolutions, or your new priorities for 2024. Again, I'll prefer priority because here's the thing. When we say I don't have time for that, right? Like I don't have time to exercise today because even though it was my goal to exercise 5 times a week for 2024, I didn't have time today. And it really is it wasn't a priority for you that day. You didn't make it a priority that day. I didn't make it a priority that day. And that's not to make you feel bad or to make me feel bad, but it does feel different coming out of your mouth when you say it's just not a priority right now, as opposed to saying, I don't have time for that. Change that up, and that right there will be a game changer for you in 2024. So happy New Year. This is going to be a great year. I am walking in complete faith over you, over what God has for you in your life for 2024. It's not all going to be easy. It's going to require faith. It's going to require probably a little bit of surrender. It's going to require being uncomfortable, and that's okay because we're going to do this together. And I'm so thankful for you, for tuning into this podcast episode, for sharing your thoughts on this episode. I'm excited for all the Turquoise Talk guests we have lined up for this first quarter. Just some amazing mompreneurs that are going to just share their stories with you, share their best success tips with you. But happy New Year again. And y'all know I'm believing in you always. And I will catch you on the next episode. Well, that's a wrap, friends. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. I really hope it met you right where you are and gave you some encouragement for your day. Could you do me the biggest favor and leave me a rating and review? Seriously, it's the best way for you to support the show. And while you're there, be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. Thanks again. And until next time, I am believing in you always.